All right, guys, so today is Wednesday, November 17th. We're being talking about authentication and authorization using Django's framework. So just some introduction here. Let's actually talk about authentication and authorization, make sure we understand what we're dealing with here. So the first question you might have is, what is authentication and what is authorization? So the simple answer here would be they're just two fancy big words that both start with auth, right? They're similar in terms of what they're describing, but this definition obviously doesn't really tell us what the difference is. It actually tells us what the similarities are. But let's actually talk about what authentication is. So authentication is the process of validating credentials of a given user. So essentially you're answering the question of who are you? So you're making a request to a server or a website. They want to know who you are. So you need to authenticate yourself so that, the server knows it can kind of deliver some data to you based on who you say you are. Authorization, on the other hand, is the process of validating what you are capable of once you are logged into a site. So, there's different levels of users. A lot of times you might have admin users, like you might have staff users, you might have just regular users. Each one of those groups or those tiers have different capabilities, right? So admin users might be able to do some extra functionality, and that's set up through permissioning. So again, authorization is based on what are you allowed to do, or that's kind of specifying what are you allowed to do after you are authenticated with a website or a server. Right, so again, when I go to Amazon.com, I need to log in. That login is what the authentication process is all about. So I log in with my email and password, assuming that both those are correct. The server will authenticate me in a sense saying, okay, I know who you are. You've verified that you are who you say you are. I'm good with that. So now we're kind of good to go with your login here. Authorization, when I go to Amazon.com, I have access to view my shopping cart. I can place orders. Those are permissions that are granted to my user. But I probably don't have, the permission to update inventory of a product or to post, a new product on Amazon. That's probably a different level or like a different customer type. I am just a normal customer. I don't have my own Amazon marketplace. Maybe some of you guys do, but I do not. So again, authorization is just controlling what I am able and not able to do on a given website. Any questions on the difference between authentication and authorization? All right, hopefully we understand the difference between authentication and authorization. All right, so that's it for slides. Again, don't have too many crazy slides today, but let's actually figure out how we actually implement this in Django. So we have a kind of a lengthy tutorial here, but it's not going to be too complicated, I don't think. Well, let's get into it. So a lot of this I've made sure that what I'm going to be coding on screen is on the curriculum page. So hopefully you guys can follow along, but we'll kind of just get started together here. I'll leave it to you if you guys want to code along. I would not recommend coding along, but it is up to you if you feel like you want to code along with us. All right, with that, I'm going to create projects. Yes, I'll put it in my sandbox. I'll create a new project. So cd, let's create a new folder, make dir. I'm going to call this Django Auth. Django Auth. All right, and let's get into Django Auth and code this up. Hey. Cd into Django Auth. And code here. All right, bring up a VS Code window here. Make that larger, swap that over here. And all right, we should be ready here. All right, so we're gonna go through the motions of creating a Django project. Again, we've done this a few times. I'm gonna go kind of quickly through it just because we've done it before. But again, if there's any step that is unfamiliar or you have any questions, definitely stop me here. So to create a Django project from scratch, first thing I want to do is create a virtual environment. So we do python -m -env, and then I'm going to name my virtual environment .env. All right, so that should create a folder with all the relevant files. I don't really need to worry about that. But I do want to get into my virtual environment. So I'm going to do source .venv, bin, and activate. All right, so now I'm in my virtual environment. Awesome. All right, next up, I want to install a few libraries into this virtual environment bubble. So I'm going to do pip install. I'm going to install Django. And then I'm going to be using a Postgres database. I'm just going to do psychopg2 also, because that is required if you're using Postgres. All right, so let's let those items install here. All right, should be finishing up here. All right, I think that's done. I think it's done. All right, there we go. All right, so we created a virtual environment, installed libraries we want. Next up, I want to, let's just create a database before I forget. So I'm going to create a database. I'm going to call it my site _ DB. Again, you can call your DB whatever you like, but I'm going to go with my site DB. I'm going to create a Django project. So Django admin start project. This can be called my site. I'm going to put that period so I don't have nested folders. Oops, actually, I'm going to delete that because that is not what I want. So delete that, never happened. I want to call this my site _ proj, just to have that project label there. Again, totally optional, but I like to have that. Next up, I'm going to create my app. So it's going to be python manage.py start app. I'll call this my site _ app. All right, cool. So I have my app folder, I have my project folder. That's what I would expect. All right, cool. A couple more things we need to do to get this up and running. We need to go to our project folder. In our settings.py, we have two things we need to update. First thing, let me minimize my terminal here. First thing is we want to find the section for installed apps and add in the app that we're going to be creating here. So my site app, that's the name of my app. So I added that here. Second thing we need to do for a Postgres database, we need to update our database section. So I'm going to do PostgreSQL. And then my database name was my site _ DB. All right, so we've created our database. Last thing we want to do to get this up and running, again, we haven't really created any models, but we still want to migrate the stuff that Django kind of has queued up for migrating just to start this project. So I'm going to do python manage.py migrate, and I'll push it to the database that I created earlier. All right, so that should, toss in all the Django stuff that Django wants in my database. So that should be done. Last thing, I think we've done all the steps that we need to. Let's get our server running and see if everything works. So python manage.py run server. That should start our server. Oops, that port is already in use. I probably have something over here. So we do have the option of creating a new port, but in this case, I'll just kill my other ports. That was unintentional. Okay, cool. So now my project is running at localhost 8000. Again, you can specify the port if you don't want to use 8000, or if you have a different project running, you do have the option of controlling the port. All right, I'm going to bring up a window here, or a browser window here, so that we could check this out. All right, so we just kind of set up our project. We haven't really added much, but if we go to localhost 8000, you should see a page like this if everything was wired up correctly. This is the default Django welcome page. If you don't have any URLs, this is what Django shows to you. Any questions about the setup that we went through? Hopefully, most of you guys or all of you guys are comfortable with setting up a Django project. Okay, so hopefully you guys were able to get to this page if you're following along. Again, we just set up a bare bones Django project, didn't really add any logic or anything customized at this point. But let's actually add in a few URLs, route handlers or view handlers, and then some templates also. So we're going to get a really minimalistic website going here. Again, this is going to be serving as a template in our mind of what a website might look like. But we're not going to add much functionality. Like we're not going to bother with CRUDing today. Today's focus is just getting that login and that sign up functionality working. So first thing I'm going to do is go to my project URLs and set up a base URL for my routing. All right. So here in my project URLs, I'm going to add a path. The base for my site is going to be my sites. And then we want to include my sites is my app name. Sorry, my sites underscore app is my app name. And then the URLs from that app. So we need to include the include function. Include. All right, so include. We're basically just, saying, hey, anything with the base of my site, that's going to be kind of mapped over to my site apps.urls. All right, so now that we are pointing to this, we need to create that. So Django does not automatically create a URLs in our app. So we need to do that ourselves. So let me create a new file. I'll call it urls.py. All right, I probably should have copied what I had before. So I'm going to copy my project URLs, dump that in here. So I have a starting point. We don't need admin in here. Delete that. Go away. All right, so in here, I'm going to create a few simple routes. So one's going to be called home, and that's going to be handled by the homepage view handler. The name of this will be home, so it's going to be very consistent with my naming. And we're going to create a couple more pages here. So the other page, I'm going to call it view. Again, these are very generic names because this can be a very generic website. All right, so another path that goes to view is going to be handled by the view page handler. And this is something I'm going to create in my views. I haven't created it yet. So that's why I get a yellow squiggly. And then I'm going to name these routes so I could reference them when I need to. The last route I'm going to create is going to be called edit. And if you didn't guess it already, that's going to be handled by the edit page view handler. And the name of this route will be edit. All right, you guys good with these three routes?
Yes, Ankur, just a quick question. The URLs is going to look for a folder named templates, right? So it's going to go to templates, and then it's going to look for those homepage, view page, edit page. Is that right? Or am I I'm confusing something, aren't I?
Yeah, I think you stepped ahead a couple steps here. So this is simply a function. This has nothing to do with what we're actually going to show the user. So when you mentioned
that's right.
templates,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's
No,
going to
fine. Yeah, I'm glad you
models.
asked.
All right,
Again,
all right. Sorry,
always,
my brain was broken there. Got it now. Thanks.
Yeah, no need to apologize. Yeah, again, there's a lot of steps here, so easy kind of mix a couple things up. Again, this is going to be a function in my views that's going to respond to, hey, when someone makes a request to this URL, we're going to generate a response via this function, right? So that's going to be in my views. So I'm going to automatically import my site underscore app.
Ankur, wouldn't that be views.homepage?
Depends how you import it. So,
okay.
Yeah. So in this case, I'm opening up my views and importing everything from it. So just to do it the way that Guillermo maybe asked about, you can import your views module like this. And now if you do it that way, you need to tack on a views dot here. So either way, I'm not sure which way is better per se, but I usually lean towards the first one. I'm not sure why. But yeah, this works also. So if I import views, I need to do views dot and then the functions that are going to handle it. All right, so just make sure you understand how you're importing. So I switched it up on you guys there quickly. I think the tutorial page has the way I did it before with the .views import star. So just make sure, again, whenever you're copying and pasting, you pay attention to exactly what you're doing. In this case, I'll go with this route just because to change it up, I guess. All right, so now I want to go to my views.py and quickly code up these functions. They're not going to be anything glamorous right now. So I'm going to do def homepage. That takes in a request. That's an HTTP request object. We're going to return a render. That renders takes in the request. Again, that's just a parameter you have to pass in. The next item is going to be our actual template view. So this is what Michael was, I think, mentioning. So this I'm going to put into a pages folder. So I'm just kind of doing this in the future. I know I'm going to create a pages directory, and then this will be called home.html. If I wanted to pass data, I would pass a context here, but right now I don't have anything to pass. So this would be a dictionary. I don't have anything I want to pass right now, so I'm going to not pass that. It's optional. All right, so this is simply my homepage handler. Luckily, my edit and my view, or I guess my view and my edit are going to look essentially the same. Nothing glamorous going on here. So again, that's going to render my view.html. And I'm going to have a template page called edit.html. All right, again, 3 simple view handlers. We're simply taking a request, returning a page. That's all we're doing right now. You guys with me? All right, so we did our URLs. We did our view handlers that are going to respond to any requests to those URLs. Last thing we need to do here is actually create the templates, the actual view portion. So again, terminology gets a little confusing in the MVC model, but we created our kind of controller or logic here. We need to create the physical views or the actual things that our end users will look at. So here, I'm going to create a new folder. Again, this folder must be named templates. This is just what Django, again, Django is going to look for specifically a folder named templates. If you want to customize it, I think it is possible. I'm not going to bother with that right now. So templates is the default name you got to go with. Inside of that, you can create a folder by whatever name you wish. I like to call mine pages, pretty generic. Inside here, I'm going to create my 3 pages. So one is a home.html. The second one is going to be view.html. Again, if I'm going too fast, if you guys have any questions, please stop me. And the last one is going to be edit.html. All right.
I have a quick question. How come we're skipping? This might just be because we're moving. This is a quick example, but why aren't we doing models?
Good question. So normally for our development, we will start with our models. For this tutorial today, we're not dealing with any models. So we're not going to do any CRUDing today or with this.
Oh,
tutorial.
got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I guess this is more front end focused. We are not going to create models, but Django has models that it's been created for us. So we'll kind of see how those come into play. But yeah, good thought there. Normally you do want to start with your models. If you have data to show, this website, the one we're going to create, super bare bones, can be the most boring site you see, but it'll convey the concept we're trying to convey today. But yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks for checking though. I usually forget a lot of steps through our process. So definitely good question to ask. All right, so before I create my main pages, I'm going to create a base template. And this is going to be the majority styling that I want. So I'm going to take a quick detour and go to my curriculum page because I think I've coded this up. I'm going to copy exactly what I have. And we'll quickly talk about it, make sure we know exactly what we are copying. All right, so this is going to be my base template. Let's take a quick look at it. I guess my terminal can go away right now. This is a simple HTML document. I have 2 block sections. I have a title block section. So basically I'll fill in a title for anyone that is kind of inheriting from this base model. So this is where the title will go in the head section. And then I have a few kind of site design items here. So my body nav section, I've created a div called banner, and this is going to have the title of my site. In this case, my site is called my site. Also have a simple navigational menu. So this is going to make it easier to kind of bounce back and forth between a few pages. So again, I have my home page. We're using the Django syntax here. So we're using the URL function. This right here is the name of the routes that I gave it. So again, it might be a little difficult to kind of understand each naming thing because they're pretty generic. I've called it home page. I have something called home. I have home.html. Just understand this home name is coming from our URLs, right? So I go to my URLs in my app. These names I've provided here are what I'm referencing in my links there. So I have a name of home. That is why in my menu here, I have URL, looking up a named route called home. All right, likewise for view and edit. So those names that I gave in the URLs.py, that is what I call right here.
And Ankur, where exactly did you copy and paste that from?
Oh, I copied that from the curriculum page today. You might want to refresh because I did make recent updates. Yes. Yeah, so this is going to be my base template. I'm going to add some styling just because I want to make something that looks kind of nice. This is totally optional, but if you do want to add in a style sheet, let's get some practice with that. First thing you want to do, you need to create a new folder, and you must call it new folder in your app folder. You must call it static. Again, this is just Django specific. Django specifically is going to look for something called static. If you want to use a different name, it's not going to work unless you find some Django docs that tell you you can kind of change up the naming. Again, I don't want to bother with that level of customization, so I'm just going to stick with the static name. So I create a static folder. Inside of here, I'm going to create my CSS file. So styles, you can spell styles, styles.css. All right, so this is my CSS file, nothing in it right now. Then in your base file, you want to load in that CSS file. So the way to do it, you create a link tag, relationship of style sheet, type, text, CSS. The main thing here is Django syntax. We're using the static function and loading in our CSS file here. Again, totally optional. You don't need styling, but I want to create something that looks somewhat decent, so I'm going to go with this. All right, let's add some quick styling just for fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy CSS. I do. If you guys hate it, well, you guys don't have to do this by any means. So
Ankur?
a few things I want to do. Was there a question out there? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think this would be a quick question. If you go back to that HTML template you were just at, I think the base view on line 9, let's say, for example, you had static and then inside static, you had a folder called CSS. If you wanted to link to that, you just have CSS/static. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make. That's what I was thinking. I just wanted to verify, like, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, let's actually do that because again, we could have different static items. So if you want JavaScript, you know how we link JavaScript to HTML files, you do that in a static folder also. So I might have a JavaScript folder. Yeah, let's actually create a CSS folder. So again, kind of changing it up on you. Hopefully you guys don't hate me for detracting from what the curriculum page has. But yeah, let's add a CSS folder under our static folder and put my CSS styles in there. So if I do that, I need to change the file path here. But yeah, you just kind of match up the file path to find where it is. Okay, cool. So that's going to be my CSS files. Let's add some quick styling. I'm not going to waste too much time here, but maybe a little more time than needed just because stuff should look nice. So font family, I like Trebuchet. So where's Trebuchet? There it is.
And we don't have to change the link for the styles.css. Like we don't have to indicate the new folder that was created.
I did. So I
Oh, that was quick. Okay, thank you.
But yeah, definitely didn't mean to sneak that in there. I don't want margin. What else do I want? So I have something called banner. I'm gonna give that some styling. This can be kind of quick, so you guys can use your own time to customize your styling. I'm just gonna get something here. So my banner height's gonna be 80 pixels. I wanna give it a color. I have some favorite colors in mind. Hopefully you guys have some favorite colors. This one's gonna be 00CCFF. It's a nice bluish color. Background is gonna be a nice black. I want some padding here. 0 pixels, 16 pixels. Again, you do not have to do the styling. So if you can't keep up with me right now, that's totally fine. Take this time to get your Django project up to speed. Justify content. We're going to do, actually, let's just do this piecemeal so we get a CSS review. All right, let's take a look at our site right now. So I'm going to load up my server again. We're going to do Python manage.py. Let's take a look at where our project looks like right now. On server. All right, let's go to our homepage. All right, so notice now that we have URLs, Django knows that we have some paths. We have nothing at our base path, so we need to go to /my_site. Go to /my_sites. Again, we don't have anything. Sorry, let me figure this out. All right, so if you go to my site, we don't have anything to land on right here, but Django's going to tell you a few options that you have. So I've coded up a home, a view, and an edit. So again, Django is telling you, hey, I don't have anything right now, but here are some options that you might want to go to. So I'm going to go to /home. All right, nothing here, right? We've not actually coded up anything on our homepage, so let's do that quickly. So I go to my home.html, and I'm going to copy from the curriculum page, again, just to save some time. So if I go to the curriculum page, again, this isn't going to be anything too glamorous. A neat, not necessarily a trick, but if you want to add comments in to a Django template, you actually got to use this format. It's something I just learned from Tom just now. You can't add in HTML comments apparently. So normally you add in comments like this, right? You can't do that with templates. I'm not sure why not, but that's just the way it is. If you actually want comments, you could do it with these curly brace and ampersand or hashtag. And I don't really need a comment here, so I'll take that away. Okay, so this is going to be my homepage. I have a typo here. Homepage. Let me fix that typo before I forget. So this should be homepage. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Homepage. That's correct. So that should be login page. First view page. Let's edit. Sorry for the typos. All right, so our template, super simple. We're simply substituting in a title and some content into the second part. So our base has two sections. We have the title block, and then we have a content block down here. So that's where our main content is going to go. All right, this stuff up here is just going to be a simple nav menu for every page. But each page is going to have different content. So I created a main content block, and we're going to populate that with our actual pages. So here, block main content, simply a heading that says this is the home page. I'm going to copy that, go to my view page, and my view page is going to look pretty much the same. It's going to have a different title, view page, and edit page. If you didn't guess already, same thing. Edit page and edit page. All right, so we've now actually added some content to our actual pages. So let's see if that makes a difference here. Refresh. All right, so this is what my website looks like now. So this is the homepage. This is the main content. This is my menu, and this is my banner. All right, so not quite exactly what I want it to look like. So I'm going to add a few more items here to my styling. Again, you guys probably don't care about styling as much as I do, but always nice to look at something that looks nice. So let's take a look at my base HTML. So I have banner. I've targeted that. I have something called site header. I'm going to target that now. So site header is what I've called it. I want that font size to be 40 pixels. Hopefully that's not too big. How's that look? Okay. That's a reasonable size. I want that to be centered. So if you remember your Flexbox tricks, Flexbox will let you center items. So if I go to banner, display will be flex. And then, is it align items? Aligns items center. Yep, there we go. So it's centered vertically. All right, so my page is coming together here. Maybe you want to do a couple other things. Sorry, don't mean to waste too much time on styling, but that'd be fun to just make this look a little nice. So I have something called menu. I want to give that a background color of white. I think white might look nice. What else do we have here? So maybe menu, every hyperlink in there, I want that to have a certain style. So it's going to be font size small. Take a look at how that looks. All right, so a smaller font size. This white is not being used right now. Let's do a background color maybe. Background, let's actually do a background image. So something cool you can do, there's something called linear gradients. We're going to go to right. What color do you want? We want to start with black, I think. Let's start with a gray. promise we'll be done with styling shortly. Let's go with 222222. If you're not familiar with this linear gradient function, you could definitely look it up. Read documentation. Pretty simple to use. Add some nice visual coloring. In this case, I want to go to 00CCFF, one of my favorite colors out there. That's going to be at 100%.
Hey, Ankur, on that, when you're typing the colors right there, did that autocomplete for the color completely, or did you have to type in hashtag 222222?
I had to type it in the first time. Anytime you use a color, so I used 00CCFF up here. VS Code will kind of auto suggest it for you. If you have a color, it'll try to suggest using that color again. So you can auto fill it. Once you use one color, VS Code will say, hey, you might be trying to use this color, so you could get some suggestion there. But for the most part, I am manually typing these in. All right, so this is a dark gray. This is a bright blue. Let's take a look at that. Refresh. Okay, so this is that gradient that I added in. My hyperlinks will hard to read there, so let's clean that up. And then we'll proceed on with our actual items. So our menu needs some padding. Padding will be 0px, 16px, maybe 2px, down here, 4px. All right, we need to update our links. So let's go with a cover, a active. Let's get another nice color in here. We'll do hashtag CC00FF. It's a nice fuchsia color. We want to do a visited. Again, this is all from our CSS days, so if you're lost here, definitely can omit this. If you have any questions, please do ask though. I want a darker color here, so let's go with the 8800FF, maybe like a purplish color. Okay, let's take a look at this.
So I do have a question while you're doing that. I don't know if this would be an offline question, but when I try to actually run the server and go to my site/home, it says that it does not exist. So I went back through and just copy and pasted everything, and I still get the does not exist error. Do you know what could be causing that?
Again, copying and pasting, I did change up a few things. So make sure you don't have any typos. Again, reading the Django message. So what is it telling you that does not exist?
That's a pretty good question. It says template does not exist at my site/home.
Yep,
And
so it
then-
sounds like that you're missing a template. So your template path is likely incorrect. Are you able to share your screen quickly?
Sure.
Okay, again, a skill that hopefully you guys are gonna get better with, reading error messages and then debugging. So let's take a look at this. So yeah, it says template does not exist. It's looking for something in your my site/home folder.
Okay.
All right, so if I look at your setup here, you have a templates folder, you have something called pages.
Correct.
Inside of that, so if I go to, can you take me to your views.py?
Views.py, sure. I can't see right now because of the this bar that's blocking it from the, there we go.
Okay, so you have pages.view, that looks fine. Oh, I think your issue is with your base.html. So if you look at your error message again on your, yep, notice it's saying base.html. It's looking for base.html inside my site/home.
Okay.
So the way I have it organized, my base.html is nested under my templates folder, not under my pages folder. Yeah, so I did it that way. Yeah, cool.
Great. So I'm sorry. So how did you know that so I can know in the future?
Again, just looking at the error message. So there's something wrong with your base.html. I was looking for it inside of, what was it, my site and home.
Yeah, go like this. What gives us that error?
Yeah, so
Okay.
my site/home. So again, I just kind of picked out, okay, it showed me base.html. There's something wrong with that. So you're trying to request my site/home. I think it's looking at that local directory and trying to find base.html. Again, part of it is just experience, but yeah, that was something that we had something that was different.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah,
thank
if you get a template does not exist, that's usually meaning a file path has been kind of incorrect setup.
Okay.
All right, cool. Okay, so this is what my site looks like. Maybe your site looks a little different, but okay. So I think my styling is done for now. Thank you for bearing with my styling peculiarities. With that, we have our site set up and we have a few pages. We have our home page. Click on view. We should get to the view page. Click on edit. We should get to the edit page, right? All right, I'm going to change one more thing here because I don't like the color. So it should be visited. Yeah, that should be purple. Okay, so with that, we have our site set up. Let's take a quick break and then we're actually going to get to the login stuff. So during the break, if you have any questions, if you're still trying to get this work, let me know. But hopefully you have something that looks like this. Again, just a simple banner, a few pages that we click through, and nothing too exciting yet, or hopefully something gets more exciting. All right, so I'm going to pause recording. All right, so we just kind of created a quick, simple web page or website with a few pages. We have our home page, view page, and edit page. Added some styling. Probably spent a little bit too much time on that, but okay. Hopefully, if you guys are following along, you guys were able to create this. So I know we went a little quickly. A lot of this was on the curriculum page, so kind of just grabbed it from there. But now we're going to be actually adding on to this. So a lot of this is going to be new stuff we're adding. I'm not sure if most of it is not on the curriculum page. So the curriculum page has the starter code. We're going to add on to it here. All right, so our goal now is to add some login functionality, right? So right now I have access to all these pages. I don't have to log in, right? There's nothing special going on here. But most sites, maybe not most sites, but a lot of sites want to have user accounts where, like, if I log in again to Amazon, I have some special content that I could see once I'm logged in, like my order history, my current shopping cart, maybe recommendations. So we want to tailor this based on whoever is authenticated to our site. So for this, we're going to leverage Django's authentication model. Now, we do not have to, but the whole point of using Django is so that things that are difficult are much easier, because Django has kind of done the hard work for us. It's done the heavy lifting. We just got to make sure we know we use it correctly, and then Django should allow us to implement these things without too much of a hassle. All right, so we're going to add login functionality to my site over here. So we got a few things that we need to do. And again, a lot of these steps are just Django specific. So if there's any questions, we'll probably read documentation or just try to make sure we understand what's going on. So I'm going to close some tabs here because I got a lot of pages open. Let's keep my view. Let's keep my URLs. Project URLs can go away. Settings should stay here. All right. So we are going to leverage, again, Django's authentication model. So the first thing we're going to want to do is include some routes. Now, Django, if you include from django.contrib.auth. URLs. Let's double check this. Let's forget my includes. So this is what we want. Looks like we are missing that there. That is not good. Oh, I don't think we need to import it. We just include it like this. Got it. All right, so ignore that. Simply, let's add a new route. So path, this is where you can name it whatever you want. I chose to call it off. You can name this whatever you'd like. This is a distinction I want to make, though. We are doing something that's non-standard. The standard way to do this, just to make sure you're clear, is you want to go to your project URLs and add a specific routing called accounts. This is a specific name that Django is going to default to at your project level. I'm not going to walk you through that. I'm going to actually allow us to customize it a little bit, but just know if you want it to just work the way it is, you need to create an accounts URL mapping at the project level, because that is a default path that Django will look for. However, I don't like being limited to that. I want to add some customization here. So of going to my app, adding in a path here, and calling it whatever I want to. Again, you don't have to call it auth. You can call it login. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to go with auth. Going to include Django.contrib.auth.urls. This auth has no relation to my auth. So maybe I should probably rename it. I don't want to cause confusion, but hopefully you guys can distinguish. This is totally separate from the name I gave it. You guys cool with that? All right, so we're including some routes here. Again, this is coming from a different location in Django. This actually provides us with a bunch of route names. So if you go to the curriculum page, we are getting access to these routes. Again, these are just Django routes that are created for us. So we're going to have something called login, logout, password change, and a few others. All right, I'm not necessarily going to implement all of these. In fact, I'm only going to implement login and logout, but just know like the default kind of template that Django wants or provides is that, the basic user functionality that you would expect from pretty much any website, where you should have the ability to log in, log out, change your password, reset your account, I guess, a few other things. I'm actually not even sure what reset/done does, but oh, I guess that's password reset complete. Got it. All right, but I'm just going to worry about these things. So just know that including this single line right here is giving you some additional routes here. We could have manually wrote these routes out ourselves, right? There's nothing stopping us from adding login and then another one for log out and another one for password change. But in this case, Django kind of does it for us, so we're just going to include it. Unfortunately, Django does not provide a default signup route. Now, I am not sure why this is the case. I feel like signup is a typical, use case for authentication where we need to create an account. So in this case, we need to create our own signup route. This is not included in the URLs here. So again, you could call this whatever you want. I could call it donuts. I could call it signup. Just for consistency, I'm going to nest it under my auth route. Again, you do not have to do this for signup because that could be located whatever, but this is just a routing location. So I'm going to put that under auth signup. That's going to be handled by the signup page, and we'll give it a name of signup. So again, this is something we need to add because there's no signup route built in. Versus login and logout, they are routes that exist and they have names already. So the name for the login route is login. The name for the logout route is login. Again, this is coming from this line right here. These are just routes available to us. Any questions about what we've included here?
So the one that you just wrote, does that still need to draw from the, does signup page need to draw from views? So you need views.signup page, or is that?
You're right.
Okay.
Yep, so this is a handler I'm going to create. Yep, thank you. I forgot about the views there. So the name of that route will be signup. So let's keep in mind the routes we're going to be using. We're going to be using login and signup. I don't think we need to do anything for logout. I think that's should be handled for us. So let's make sure we understand what's going on here. So there's some Django magic going on here. Django is providing us the URLs and the view handlers for us. We do not need to code up the view handler for logging in. Django is going to take care of all that for us. And that, again, that makes our lives much easier. Sign up is a little different because that's not baked into the default authentication model. So we're going to handle the sign up for the most part, but it's not actually being that difficult. All right, so we added 2 items. We do need to implement sign up page because that is something we are adding on, but Django will handle the login and logout for us. We don't have to do any logic for that. However, we do need to create template views for the login and maybe the logout page. So Django does not automatically have a default, template view for those items. So this is, again, just back to Django naming convention.
Ankur, I have a question.
Yep.
So when you're saying that when we put that line in there, we don't have to deal with any of the logic of these pages. We just have to create the template to display them once we add that line and we're good to go.
Almost, yes. If we went with the default account space, yes, we'd be good to go. There's a couple things we need to tweak because we're using a custom routing URL. But we'll see that it's actually not too difficult. So that's why I chose to customize a little bit. yeah, so again, the logic for login, log out, we don't have to do anything with that. But we need to provide Django a view, a template view, so that it could actually show something to the user. So to do that, again, this is something Django specific. So let's make sure everyone catches this. Inside your templates, you must create a folder called registration. It must be called that. If you name it something else, it's not going to work the way you want it to work. All right, so registration is just the name that Django went with. So I'm going to create a folder inside my templates folder, create another folder called registration. This is where Django will look for your login template. Your login template must be named login.html. All right, so again, just some of the limitations. Django's a framework that does a lot for us, but in order for Django to work, for us, we need to kind of adhere to its naming convention. So in this case, registration is your folder. Inside of that, there should be a login.html file. All right, so I'm going to still extend my base. I'm going to write this by hand, but it's available on the curriculum page. Let's do %. We're going to extend base.html. Let's give this a title. So we have block title. We want to end the block. Don't forget to end your blocks here. All right, so we have a title. Let's simply call this the login page for lack of creativity. And then we have some main content we want to add in here. So again, these blocks are coming from my base.html. So that's why the names are as such. They're not special names. They're just names that I've given to my block sections. Any question about what I'm doing here? So again, I'm just filling in the pieces that need to be filled in for my base, right? There's two pieces, the title, I've specified that, and I'm doing the main content. That's the name of the block I chose to name it. All right, so my login page is gonna add a few items in here. So let's add a heading here, so H2, this is the login page. And now we're going to have a form. So right, when someone's logging in, they fill out their username and password. And there's some magic that goes on here. First thing, since I forget half the time, I'm going to remember to add in my CSRF token. Again, this is just a security thing. Just kind of accept that you always need it. If you want to read more details on it, you are free to do so. I am not going to bore you with them, nor do I really fully understand all the intricacies of this, but let's just accept we need it. I'm going to create a table because I'm going to render my form of the table. So form as table. All right, so I'm going to pause here because there's some magic going on here. As I mentioned, Django is providing me with the URLs and the view handlers for the login process. A part of that is it's automatically going to pass a form to this page. I am not passing a form. In fact, I am not the one rendering this page. But this form, just know it exists and is accessible for your login page. Again, that's just some magic. There's no, connect the dots. It's just Django is passing a form. I'm using a form. It's just reading documentation tells me it's kind of how I could format this. All right, so that's going to be my form. We always need a button to submit. So we got my method here. So the method should be a post. Again, we are submitting data. So we're going to post, and then the button will be a type of submit. And we've done forms a bit, so hopefully you guys are familiar with all these pieces. And my button will just say login. All right, so nothing too crazy here. We're just providing a form where they type in their username and password, they hit login, Django will take care of the rest. All right, so that's the benefit here. Maybe let's add in HR and say, let's add a div. Don't have an account. Sign up. You can sign up for what? Let's make that a link. And this should go to the sign up page.
Ankur, just so I'm clear, the reason that Django will handle the rest is because this form is on the login.html page nested in a registration folder in your templates. Like that's how it knows.
So the registration login, that's where it's going to look for my login template right there. It's going to look for something called login.html inside a registration folder. It'll handle the logic already exists, like to log in. Once the user types in the username and password, hits login, Django will do the rest. It'll take in the data and process it, validate it, and do all that stuff that you would expect. I don't know if I answered your question, but the key part we had to add was a registration folder inside of our templates and a login. Given that, Django will automatically find it there. If I don't put it here, Django will not find a template. In fact, let's actually screw this up just for fun. So I'm going to rename this to registration_x. All right, let's see if this actually screws it up, or maybe I'm lying to you. Who knows? All right, so I created another link here just for fun. If you don't have an account, we should navigate, give them a link to the sign up page. All right, so they should have an option to sign up. And given that, we need to create a sign up template. This is flexible. So again, sign up is a functionality we are adding. This is not something that Django automatically does for us. So you don't have to place the sign up in your registration folder, but I think login and sign up are similar functions. So I'm going to add my sign up page right there. Again, you do not have to, but that's what I'm going to do. So sign up will sit next to the login page. Again, this is something that we are doing. So sign up. This is the sign up page. Sign up. And let's maybe say already have an account. You can log in. All right, so this is just the link that will link to the login page. Just provide some nice functionality for our users. Let's just say sign up. Okay, this we're gonna have to pass in a form to our sign up page. Again, this is not Django magic. This is something we chose to do. So this is just like any other page. We need to provide data here. So I'm going to go to my views. I need to create a method, and I've decided to name it sign up page, right? This is the name I'm matching in my URLs, right? I said views that sign up page is going to handle this route. So I need to create that function. So sign up page takes in the request. And then I'm going to do some, again, although we are doing this ourselves, Django still has some built-in functionality for us. So if we go to the curriculum page, we're going to do some copy and pasting to make this a little simpler. All right, so we created our sign up items. There's something called user creation form. This is a model form, but a really specialized model form that we could use. So to do that, I need to import it from Django contrib auth.forms. So I'm going to copy that so I don't mistype it. So in my views, I'm going to import that user creation form, sorry. Now I'm going to create my data dictionary, data, call it form, and just create a user form, creation form instance. All right, given that, I could return a render of request as the first parameter. Second parameter is where my template is. In this case, it's in registration/signup.html. And then I'm going to pass data to my context. Okay. Any questions of what I've done here? Again, this is a pre-built-in model form. I did not create it. It's just I imported it. This will give me exactly what I want for a sign-up page. It exists in Django, so we can use it.
Ankur, you don't need the context, right? You could just pass in my data if you wanted to.
That's a good question. It depends on the sequencing of these parameters. It looks like context is the third parameter, so you are right. It looks like I can just do my data.
Okay.
The reason I did it because I wasn't sure if context was a parameter, so I did a keyword argument to actually make sure. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we just passed my data. That should be fine. Why is it yellow squiggly? I'm not sure. Oh,
Listening.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's take a look at where we are. Again, always get to incrementally check. I know we've done a lot, but let's kind of review what we've done and see what we can do. So we added a couple URLs. This should provide us with auth/login, auth. So let's see. We should have access to auth login, also auth log out. There's other ones like password change with one of them. Again, this is just coming in from this include. We're just going to mostly worry about login. And then we added another route for sign up. For both of these, for login and sign up, we need to add templates. The template must go under registration. Ignore the _X. We're just playing around there. Login, HTML. And then sign up was the name I chose to give my sign up page. And in our views, we added a method to show that sign up page. All right, so we've done a lot. So let's make sure we can see what we're doing. So go back to my site. Everything looks the same. Again, nothing changed here. But now if I go to my site auth/login, this should find my login page. However, notice I get template does not exist. Again, you're probably going to see this error often. The reason being is it's trying to find the template in registration/login.html. And this is something I told you guys before. Specifically, Django wants a folder called registration because it's going to look for that and look for a file called login.html. If you decide to not follow naming conventions, you're going to run into some trouble, as we did here. The reason we ran into trouble because I, for testing purposes, renamed my folder to registration_X just to show that Django is not going to be happy or not going to find what it's looking for. So again, it's looking specifically for login.html, specifically in registration under your templates. So given that, now that I've appropriately named my folder, if I refresh, all right, this is my login page now. So that form is being rendered here. This is not a form I created. This is the form that Django automatically is passing to my login page. So this form is what Django has provided. I'm just rendering it, and that rendered version has username and password, which is what you'd probably expect for a login.
And I'm sorry, just so I'm clear here. So because all of these, they're all kind of like children of the base HTML, right? And that's where they're getting all the style from.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly why I create a base HTML. So everything that I've highlighted here, this is all going to be on every single page that I create because the base template has the styling and every other page is adding on to it. So everything here is the content. So each individual page adds its own content, but every page, the way I've coded this up is going to use the same style. And that's, again, just to provide a consistent look across pages. Yep, good question. All right, so this is my login page. Let's try to log in. So I'm going to try to log in with viewer 1, and let's go to password. Type in a password. All right. Hopefully you guys are kind of hip to the game here. This user doesn't exist. I never created this user. I'm not, there's no magic here. So if I try to log in, let's see what happens. All right. Please enter a correct username and password. Note that both fields are case sensitive. This is Django validating this user login for us. So again, we didn't know how to do this. It's already baked in. So that's kind of nice functionality. This is what I would expect because again, this user was never created, right? I can't just make up a user and log in right away. So we need to sign up for a user. So let's actually check out our sign up page. So I'm going to click on the link we provided. So sign up. Again, the URL for that is auth sign up. This is the user creation form. This is not something I created. Again, Django, this is Django's user creation form. Looks a little weird, like the alignments, whatever, I'll deal with it. But notice it gives us some helpful items here. So it looks like username is required, must be 150 characters or fewer. Tells us about special characters that we can and cannot use. Same thing for the password. Gives us some restrictions here. Also, we're going to confirm our password. So it's typical sign up stuff that you would expect, right? Nothing crazy going on here. But again, this form was provided to me. So let's actually create a user here. So I'm going to do viewer 1. Give a password of papa1234. Confirm that papa1234. Now, can anyone guess what's going to happen when I hit sign up?
Nothing.
What was that, Duncan?
Nothing?
Correct. Nothing. The reason is if we go back to my views, I kind of didn't fully do it. So here, this is my GET request. I'm submitting a post. If you guys remember, we're doing a post when we submit this form. It's going to go back to the same route. So we don't have any post functionality here. So let's actually make sure we coded that. So I'm going to do if method, just make this clear, that's request dot method equals a get. Then we want to do the stuff that I'm doing right here. All right, so let's make that clear. This is our get request. All right, so when the user initially navigates to the sign up page, they should see the form and be able to fill it out. Then when they submit the form, a post request is going to be sent to the same route, but we want to do something a little different when they are submitting data to us. So in the post case, we want to grab that data. So we can do that by creating a form instance. So we're going to do user creation form. And now we have a dictionary coming in from the request, and that dictionary is called post, right? So when the user, when the form submits a post request, it's also going to populate this post dictionary for us. Again, a lot of magic going on behind the scenes. Hopefully we understand what's going on there. So this post dictionary will basically capture all the data from the form and store that so I can access that. When I pass it to my user creation form, the user creation form will know exactly what to extract from that dictionary and create a form instance with those values. So that when I do that, if I do if form is valid, then I could do form.save. All right, so basically we're going to, when we save that form, this is actually what's going to create our user for us. That save is going to save a record to the database. Now, again, if there's any questions out there, I want to make sure I'm not going too quickly. So please.
Yeah, I got a couple questions where I'm
Sure.
a bit fuzzy on this. If you on that page, that sign up page, if you put in a password that did not meet the parameters, like Django is doing that logic for you, right? It wouldn't even do a post request. If you hit submit, would it do a post request still or no?
It will. It will still submit it, but is valid would fail.
Okay, so is valid would fail. So that's what that is valid is doing. Does it do any checking like that user already exists in the database kind of thing? Is valid also handling that?
Yep, it's doing all that for us. So anything you would normally expect of like, validating correct format, correct, we don't want duplicates, maybe, valid password, stuff like that. Yeah, Django handles that.
On the sign up page, are we able to extend the form so that we can also get like their first name, last name, and like information like that to fill the database?
We cannot the current way we're doing it. So maybe I didn't mention, yeah, I don't think I mentioned this. What we are leveraging right now is the built-in user model. So if we want to take a quick gander at that, we can. So let's take a quick detour here. So I'm going to go to my site TV. So let's open that up. We should have an auth user. So we're using the user model. So if I go here, there's nothing going to be in this table right now because we have no users right now. These are the only fields available: ID, password, last login, username. I guess there's a first name, last name. Sorry, I am mistaken. So the user creation form does not accept that. If we want to accept it, we need to create our own form for it. So the user creation form only gives me these three fields: username, password, password confirm. If we want to populate the first name and last name, we would need to create our form ourselves. So right here, if I go back to my views, instead of using this user creation form, I would need to create my own model form. So if you guys remember, I'm going to do this in line here, but usually you want a different file for it. We need to do something like class user form, inherit from models or model form. Again, let me know if I'm confusing you guys here, but we're going to create our own user form, and then here would say, fields class meta, and then we want fields. Here we would specify exactly what field we want. So the user creation form only has username, password, and I guess confirm password. But in here we want first name also and last name. So yeah, we do have that option. If we wanted to, it is possible. Does that make sense? So this form does not have those fields. If we actually spy on it, oops, that's all I want. Spy on it. All right, user creation form inherits from model form. Yeah, so these are the fields. It provides username, and password is a read-only field. Yeah, so these are read-only fields, I believe. But again, it's all up to what you want to do. If you use the built-in items, you cannot specify first name or last name for sign-up.
So in forms.py, we couldn't just add our own fields. to where
You
you
can.
were just looking?
You can create your own form. So what I'm doing right here, I'm creating
Oh,
my
to
own form.
clarify,
Then
though, because
here, I would use my user form that I created at some other point. This
no,
would
so I do understand that, but when you're using the creation form, you just said like we can spy on it, right? And you showed us like where
Yeah,
it's
that's a
coming from, but we
Django.
can't modify it.
Yeah, you can extend it. So you're saying user creation form. You could extend it if you want to. So you can kind of add on to it. That might probably be the better way to go. Okay, so let's kind of get back on track here. So we have sign up, but we don't have the post. So the post I just added in here. So the server refresh should handle it now. Let's actually see if this works. First thing I want to do is let's enter in a bad user. So let's say, let's keep the username blank. Let's keep everything blank and see what happens. So sign up. Yep. So looks like that validation actually happened on the page. So yeah, I don't think it actually submitted this, to be honest. Right. So if I add a print statement here, print your code got here. Let's see if that actually hits. I don't think it's actually getting there. So sign up. Yep. So it looks like the validation is actually happening on the page. It's not actually happening in here. We're not actually getting into here. So that's an interesting note. All right. I guess I don't need to validate, but I have duplicate code there, but I'll do it. All right. Sorry. So let's get back on track here. So let's actually create a user. So we do viewer1, password be pop 1234. So it needs to be at least 8 characters. Pop. Let's actually have mismatched password. So here I didn't write the 1234. If I do sign up. All right, I'm not going to bother with this then. All right, let's try that again. So I'm going to type mismatched passwords. Yeah, I need to return something here. Let's try that. All right, let's try that again, see if I can get this to work. All right, so in that case, we redirected, we didn't show any errors. All right, so for the sign up, I'm not gonna go through this with this because it seems like I'm getting off track. Let's just create a valid user here. So we're not doing proper authentication here because that's a little more involved. So viewer1, papa 1234, pop 1234. All right, so if I hit sign up, all right, notice I was taken to the login page. That happened because I have a redirect to the login page here. So is valid was true, form.save, save the user. Now we were taken to the login page. So that's what I chose to do. So now that we're at the login page, let's try to actually log in here. So viewer1, pop 1234, log in. All right, notice we got an error. So again, this is going to happen because we are using custom routes. So notice where it's trying to go to. It says page not found. It's trying to request from accounts/profile. Now we don't have a routing for accounts/profile. The reason it's looking for this is, again, this is the default Django behavior. Remember I told you by default, you need an accounts base and the profile URL is going to be provided there. This is because we customized it. So there's 3 things we need to add to kind of get this working for our custom needs. All right, so again, always read your error messages. That will kind of point you to it. So in this case, trying to find this, I realized that doesn't exist. So there's probably some things I need to change. Now, if you go to the curriculum page, we detail the 3 items. So where is that? Right here. So I need to add these 3 items to my settings.py file in my project. There's 3 values. One is login_URL. This is going to tell Django where our login page is. In this case, we're just going to route to the login route, right? This is a named route. So we're just saying our login route is where you should go anytime you need to reroute to the login page. When we log in successfully, we want to specify where do we want to go to. The default is account/profile. That is a default redirect URL. We need to override that, or overwrite it, I guess, by specifying in our settings file, instead of going to account/profile, we're going to navigate to our home route, which is our home page. Likewise, when we log out, we want to go somewhere, so we're just going to tell it to go to a login page. If you don't have this, there's like a default logout page that it takes you to. It doesn't look really appealing. It won't match our styling. So I'm going to add all three of these into my settings.py for my project. So project folder, there you are. Settings.py, I'll just dump it at the bottom. I don't think it really matters where it goes. So 3 items that we're adding here for authentication. All right, so again, since we chose to have custom authentication routes, again, we're not using the accounts default or default prefix. Now we're going to tell it exactly where to find the items. So given this, once we log in successfully, the redirect should take us to the home page and not to accounts profile. You guys with me? Let's try that one more time then. So let's go back to my site/homepage. All right, I want to log in. So let's go to login. And go slash. Oh, need to go off. All right, so now let's actually log in with viewer 1 and password papa1234. Log in. All right, notice we're taking to our homepage now because that login redirect URL, right? This told Django where do we actually want to go once we get a successful login. Now, if we had a bad login, let's go back to auth/login, and we're going to add links for this because I don't want to keep typing URLs. You know, if I tried, some made up user, we should get that error, right? So if I even do viewer 1, which is a valid user, if I type in a wrong password again, Django will validate it. So I type in garbage.
Hey, Ankur, real quick, my so it doesn't do anything, but I also don't get that kind of default error message. Do you have any reason why that may be?
I would not know offhand. So yeah. Okay, so we are on a homepage. We've logged in. Obviously, there's no way that we actually know that we've logged in right now, right? I can tell you we logged in, but nothing shows me on the page that we logged in. So let's actually add a little bit more functionality to our site so we know if we're logged in or not. So I'm going to take advantage of this banner, which exists on pretty much every page of my site. So let's go back to our base.html, right? So we have our banner here. Let's add another section. And that's going to introduce some new concepts or new, I guess, functionality that we can take advantage of. So this is the auto magical part of Django. Let's create a div. And here I'm going to create an if statement. So again, this is going to be Python. So I need my curly braces. If I'm going to have an else section. So I'm going to stub these out. And then finally I need to end my if block. So end if, right? So I'm going to have an if condition, which I'll add in, then else, and then end if. So this is, again, Django magic. Every page that you create has access to a special item called user. This is not something that I am passing in. User is available on every page. My sign up page will have access to user. My home page, view page, edit page should have access to this user variable. It's automatically passed in. If you actually want to know the details, it's because of, you go to your apps, this contrib app auth is doing that work for you. But we don't really care about that level of detail. So just take my word for it. You should have access to user in any of your template pages. It's not something that you manually had to pass in. User has a field called is authenticated. All right, so this is the user model. There's a field called is authenticated. Do you guys remember when I looked up my query? So never mind, ignore that. But there's something called is authenticated that will actually be a true or false value. If the user has logged in, is authenticated will evaluate to true. If the user is not logged in, this will be false. So based on that, I can, say hello to user.username. Again, this is a field on the default user model. And then maybe I want to add a button. Class will be, I think I called it small button. This can let us log out. Conversely, if they are not logged in, I want to let them know they're not logged in. So I'll say, you are not logged in. And then we'll provide a button to the login site. So we need to make this an A tag. href. This is going to point to our logout route. So again, this is a route already provided through our Django routing. So we'll do URL logout. Again, if there's any questions, please ask. All right, so I'm just
Ankur,
making.
so I see that on line 16, like you said, it's not like you're passing in user to this from your views.py
Correct.
logic. It's not being passed in.
Yep.
But and that's the same for like user.username. You just have immediate access to that on any page in your, because you are using the built-in user model that Django comes with. Is that correct?
Yes. So this user object is this is an instance of the user model from Django. That model has a field called username. So again, if I go back to that table, I guess we could see it here, but let me just select top. All right, so here, these fields are all fields that exist on the user model. So username is the one I'm referencing there. I could also access first name, last name, email, some other fields too. So again, everything in this table, I can even access password, I bet, even though that's not going to be what we expect it to be. ID, so each user has an ID, again, not relevant to the end user, but we have access to it if we need it. So again, it's just an object that's automatically being passed, and you can get the field off of it if you need to.
Gotcha. So this is a huge advantage of using the built-in user model,
Yep.
that you don't have to like pass in the model data. Because if we were using our own user, we would have to pass in that user information to the page.
Oh, not quite. So if you can create your own user model and tell Django that this is the user model, and it'll pass it for you automatically. So there's some
Gotcha.
tweaking
Thank
you do, but yeah, you're not always tied to using the built-in user model. You can create your own and tell Django, hey, I've created my own, don't use the built-in one. I'll tell you what my user model looks like, and then it'll still pass it in.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But that's a little more advanced. I know we've not covered that, but you do have that option if you want to. But again, username will come from the user model. So that's cool. If I'm not logged in, I want to show a button. I called it class small button because I want to make it a little tiny. So let's go to my CSS file. CSS. There you are. Small button is the class I created. So I want to get some styling. It's going to be a smaller button. So font size will be 10 pixels. Hopefully that's small enough. All right, let's take a look. So now we should be able to distinguish if a user is logged in or not based on this if statement. So again, is authenticated, is automatically managed by Django. That's not a value I'm setting. Django is updating it appropriately when you log in. That is true for the user. If you're not logged in, this is essentially an anonymous user, and that is authenticated is going to be false. So either way, even if you're not logged in, there's still some user object there. Again, in the case where you're not logged in, there's an anonymous user object that gets created and passed to each of your pages. All right, so now based on if we're logged in, we should get a hello message. If they're not logged in, we should see you're not logged in. So given that, let's refresh our page here. All right, notice I get hello viewer 1. So that is who I'm logged in as. So now I get some feedback that I'm logged in. Definitely have some spacing issues here. So let's do our quick Flexbox review. If you remember, Fluxbox has a way to space out items. So I go to my banner. I have display of flex. I'm going to do justify contents space between. It means it's going to insert all space, extra space between the items instead of at the very end or the default is. If I do that, let's see if that fixes it. Cool. So notice that my hello viewer one's at the very end, which is what I want it as. I'm going to add one more styling thing just for fun. Any questions out there while I mess with this?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I have a question while you're doing that. So right now, is there any way for an anonymous user to get to the home page without logging in? Like, is that possible? Do we need the else statement there?
Good question. Yes. So before we even went through this, right, before that break we took, we were able to get to the home page without logging in. Yes, we have access to every page, even though we aren't logged in, because we have no protection built in right now. So yes, anyone can access any page on our website right now. Okay, any other questions? Please ask. Please.
Ankur, for the sign up form itself, is there a way to target in CSS the username and password fields so that you could put your own placeholder in or that kind of thing?
All right, could you repeat that question?
Yes, on your sign up page where you have the form, is there a way to target in CSS the form? Like, is there an ID for username and an ID for password that you would target in your CSS to say make a placeholder for username or a placeholder for password?
Yep, I'm pretty sure there is. I don't know them offhand, but we are free to inspect it. So this is our sign up page. If we go Command Option I, bring up our developer panel. If I go to elements, let's take a look at where our web page is. Again, this is what the HTML page that Django generated from our template. So if I go to main nav, notice I have a form. Form has a table body. All right, so a lot of nested items here, but yeah, we do have an input type, and that field is called username. So yep, if you wanted to target this, you need to target it by, does this form have a name? This form does not have a name because we didn't give it a name, but I guess we'd give this form a name, and that form would have a child element of username. So yeah, you could target it just like any case. Again, this is just HTML. At the end of the day, what your browser gets is HTML. There's no Python in it. There's nothing, magical in there. But yeah, all these are elements that get created from the form. So if you wanted to, stylize this name field, you would just need to figure out how to target it, probably with an ID.
So that's an ID. Oh, okay.
There's ID underscore username is the ID of this. So if I wanted to target this, I can simply target the ID, give it some styling, and I should be good to go.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now we got this nice welcome message, right? We're logged in as viewer one. If I click log out, that should log me out. Hey, we're not logged in. So get some feedback. That's nice to have. So let's actually log in again. Viewer one is who want to log in as, and Papa154 was my password. All right, so again, we get a welcome message and we're on the home page. Cool, so we implemented login and sign up functionality. Again, took a few steps, but not as much as if we had to do this all from scratch. Again, Django's doing a lot of the work behind the scenes. We just got to provide it a template, kind of tell them where the pages are, and a lot of the stuff was just optional where we're providing some feedback to the user. What questions do you guys have about what we accomplished in the last segment here? The key highlight, again, just to focus on it again, is this user object that I have access to in my templates automatically or automagically. It's just something that Django automatically passes to us, so we could leverage that in any template that we create. All right, with that, we have login and sign up functionality. This is our authentication. So we talked about authentication. We also mentioned authorization. So that goes back to Susan's question, I think a little bit. Right now, regardless if I'm logged in or not, I can get to every page right now of my website. I can go to the edit page. I go to the view page, I go to the home page. My open question is, what if we want to kind of restrict that? So for my website here, I'm going to have some conditions. I'm going to say that anyone, whether they're logged in or not, should get to my homepage. So let's actually make this clear and we'll take a short break. So here I'm going to ask anyone can access this page. All right, that is my homepage. If I go to my view page, I'm going to say only users that are logged in can access this page. All right, that's my desire. That's what I want to do here. Last thing is, it's going to be a little more trickier. Only users that are permissioned, if I type correctly, to edit can access this page. All right, so we have 3 levels that we're going with. Homepage, anyone can access it, logged in, logged out. View, only people that logged in should have access to this page. If you're not logged in, I want to prevent access to this view page because it's like content for my page. I want people to log in. Edit page is one level on top of that, in that even though if you're logged in, you need special permissions to be able to edit data on my site. So that's what we're going to accomplish after the break. So let me pause the recording here. So let's continue with what let's continue with what we were doing earlier. So the last thing we did was kind of add some text to talking about what we want to do here. So if you look at our home, edit, and view page, we added a paragraph telling us what we want it to do. So looking at our homepage, this homepage should be accessible by anyone, meaning if you're logged in or if you're not logged in, you should be able to access this page, right? This is like your landing page. So you go to Amazon.com. Anyone that is logged in or logged out can get to Amazon.com. The view page, I only want logged in users to access this page. So if you can imagine, this is probably like, if I go to Amazon and view a shopping cart, that shopping cart should only be for my particular user. So that's what I'm kind of envisioning the view page as. So you must be logged in to have access to this page. Lastly, my edit page, you need a special permission to edit whatever you might be editing on this page. All right, so there's those things that we want to accomplish. So luckily, Django provides some useful functionality for us. So the login case is actually quite simple. So we're going to make a very minor change, and this should accomplish exactly what we want to. I'm actually going to log out here so that we're not logged in. Let's go to our views. All right, we're going to include some magical functionality. So from Django.contrib dot URLs dot auth dot decorators. All right, so we're going to import a decorator. We have not talked about decorators in detail. They are a little complicated to fully understand, but in this case, let's just kind of go with the flow. We're going to import something called login required. This is pre-built-in functionality that will do the hard work for us. Essentially, this decorator will make sure that the user has been logged in before proceeding to navigate to a page. Now, the way we use decorators is simply prepending a function with that decorator name. So use the @ symbol for a decorator, and then the name of the decorator. In this case, it's login required. Again, this is built-in functionality coming from Django contrib auth.decorators. So I'm going to wrap, basically, essentially, what this is doing, I'm wrapping my view page with some additional logic. Now, again, we need to talk about decorators more in detail at some point to kind of understand quite what's going on, but what's going on in this view page is being passed in to this function, and that function is doing something for us. But the simplified way, just say login required is protecting access to this, and you're going to check to make sure that the user's logged in. So I'm actually going to add that to my edit page also, so I don't want them to get to the edit page if they're not even logged in. Sign up page, everyone should be able to sign up, so that does not need protection. As I mentioned, my homepage, everyone should have access to that, so I'm not going to add the login required decorator. All right, so this minor change gives us the functionality we want for the homepage and the view page. So if I save this, now refresh my page, let's try going to my homepage, right? I am not logged in. can I get to my home page? Yep. Notice anyone can access this page. What if I try to go to my view page? Oh, this is not my view page. Notice I was taken to my login page. So we're automatically redirected to the login page because we did not have access to the view page, right? This is not the view page. This is not the edit page. But if you look at your URL, you should notice something a little, a little funny in there. Maybe not funny, but something informational. Notice I have this next field and the target of where I was trying to go to, right? I was trying to go to the edit page. So Django is keeping track of where I was trying to go, but it's making me log in first because I've told it you need to log in before you can access this content. Same thing with the view. If I click on view, notice that my URL now says next equals my site / new. That is where I was trying to go to, but we were redirected to the login page. So again, this is magic functionality that Django just does for us. Now, if I actually log in, so if I log in as viewer1, password is papa1234. Once I hit login, instead of going automatically to my home page, which is the default landing page, this next value is going to kind of hijack that and say, all right, you were trying to go to the view page originally. So I'm going to take you to the view page directly once you log in successfully. All right, so this is all coming from that login required decorator. So if I hit login now, notice I am logged in. Sorry, I'm on the view page because I'm logged in here as viewer 1. And now I can access this page. I should have access to the edit page also, because the only requirement right now is that we're logged in. We have not implemented this part yet. All right, you guys with me? So again, simple change, but now we have protection. So we're logged in, we have access to everything. We log out, go to the home page, cool, we still have access to it. Oops, we can't get to these pages because we're not logged in.
Are you saying, so when you were logged out and you clicked view and it redirected you to log in, whenever you logged in, it auto routed you back to view?
Yep.
That's
So that's the magic up here. So this URL has a next parameter. So this question mark essentially is defining parameters. So there's a next value that Django is using so that when we hit login, instead of rerouting to what we told it, the default reroute URL is the homepage, it's going to say, all right, you have a next value. I'm going to navigate to that instead. So Django is, again, handling it for us, nothing that I'm doing special. All I did was add a login required decorator, right? So I imported login required, wrapped my view handlers for it, and then Django does rest. So that's awesome Django work at play. All right, so yep, now when I log in, if I go to the edit page, oops, I gotta log in. Let's go viewer one more time. I know we've done this a lot. If I hit login now, I should be taken to the edit page because that was my original target before I was rerouted. All right, now let's get to the slightly trickier part of permissioning. All right, so let's take a step back and talk about the Django permission model. I think the documentation is pretty good on this. So I'm just going to search for it. Django permissions. So get me to where I want. Yep, using the Django authentication system. You guys can read this at your leisure. It kind of details a lot of things, but there's, I guess, three main pieces here that I want to talk about. And I'm going to pseudocode this just to write somewhere. So you don't need to create this file, just lecture.py. So I just want to highlight three things. There's three things at play here. There are users, there are permissions, and there are groups. All right, so these are the three things interacting here. You can, I'm going to say can, and that's the key word here. You can assign permissions to users. All right, so I could, hypothetically say viewer one has edit perm. Right? Again, you can do this, but this is not the recommended way of doing things. If you're asking why, I could try to detail that. Let's say we had multiple users. Let's say we had viewer one, viewer two has edit perms. Okay, so we're setting permissions specifically on each user. This is fine, this will work, but this is not generally the recommended way to design your permissioning system. So I'm not going to get too into this. Let's talk about why this is not ideal. All right, they all have edit perms. Let's say in the future, I have a requirement to add a new perm. Let's say I need a delete perm, right? Now, if I add the delete perm here, I need to add it to every single user that exists in my system that needs that perm. That is not going to be efficient. in terms of if I have like 1 million users, I don't want to update 1 million records. That is cumbersome. That is also prone for errors. If I forget to add one perm to a particular user, well, that's going to cause some troubles for that user. So again, you could assign permissions directly to users. These two items work together. So users has a permission set, you could add a permission to it and it'll work. The more proper way though is with groups. So with groups, what you do is you assign a user to a group. All right, so user is assigned to a group. And then you also assign permissions to a group. All right, so now users inherit permissions via their group. So if I do it this way, it makes it much easier because if I have viewer 1 is a member of, let's say, the edit group, I could do that for every viewer or whatever users that I want to be part of this group and have those permissions. So viewer 2, 2, and 3 are all members of the same group. In this case, I've called it edit group. Well, now that I have this structure right here, initially my group will have edit perms. But in the future, if I need to add, a delete perm, for example, all I need to do is add that permission to this group, and all of these viewers will get those permissions. So the group is kind of like the middleman. It's a classification. It's a role that users can have, and users can have multiple roles. So a user can be part of group 1, group 2, again, as many groups as they need to be. So you can be like an admin user, a regular user, special user, limited user, as many groups as you want to create. All right, so just understand that groups are the general recommended way of setting up permissions, where you add users to groups, you add permissions to groups, and those users thereby will have those permissions via the groups. Questions? All right, so the 3 things at play are users, permissions, and groups. We already talked about users. Those are the user models we're talking about. Permissions and groups are things that exist for Django, and that's what we're going to leverage here to accomplish this task. All right, so I'm going to do a few things here. If you want to follow along, definitely do. Going to my admin.py in my app folder, I'm going to register a few models. So from Django .contrib type.auth.models, I want to import the permission model. Permission. From Django, I'm going to have to look this up. Okay, from Django.contrib.content types. This it gets a little hairy, so I'm going to kind of glaze over some things. Hopefully you guys can accept it. There's something called content type. It's kind of weird. You just need it. But in this case, I'm going to register these items so I could see this in my admin panel. So admin.site.register that permission model. And then admin.site.register the content type model. All right, so these are pre-built-in models that exist in Django. Remember when we did that migration initially? These are all the things that Django created models for or tables for. So we have access to them, they exist. We don't need to create these tables. All right, so now that I've done this, there's one more thing. I want to use my admin panel. If you guys remember, or even if you forgot, to get access to that, I need to create a super user. So I'm gonna do Python manage.py create super user, all one word. Hit enter, it's gonna go through a form here. What username? I'm gonna go with admin as my username. Email address, don't care about. Admin will be my password. Admin. Yeah, it says you don't have a great password. I don't really care about security right now, so I'm going to say, yeah, that's fine. All right, so it successfully created a super user. Now that I have that super user, I can go to my admin panel. So that's going to be localhost 8000/admin. Oops, my server is not running. Python manage.py run server. Okay, so now when your server is running, you can go to localhost 8000/admin. If you remember, that's a route that it already existed on your project, right? So this route that we always see, that's what the admin panel is using. So if I go to /admin now, it'll give me a login screen. I need to log in with that super user. So admin1, admin is my username and is my password also. So I log in. Right, so notice I have access to permissions because I detailed that, or I added that to my site. Also content types. Groups and users are provided by default, so I did not need to register them on my site. We're going to add a few things. You might have questions about content type. I would say withhold your questions about content type because it doesn't really matter. For here, I'm going to create for my app, so my site underscore app, the Python model class name. I'm just gonna go with none. Again, this isn't, again, don't pay too much attention about this. I'm just trying to create a content type so I could use it. It's just something that's required. You can name this whatever you want. Usually, just to be clear about this, usually your permissions are tied to models. So, if we had like a cars and brands project, you will have some permissions for cars where you might be able to edit cars or add cars. Those are permissions that will be tied to a car model. And then you would have separate permissions for your brand model. So maybe Brandon, you're on my screen. Maybe Brandon's user has ability to add, edit, delete cars, but maybe he doesn't have permissions to add, edit, delete brands. Like, so those are the granular permissions that you can get by each model. In this case, I don't have my own model, so I'm just gonna create like a kind of a dummy content type. Hit save. All right, so that created my none content type. The only reason I need this is for my permissions. So I'm going to go to the permissions. These are permissions that are built in. Notice that you can add a user, change user. These are permissions that exist. I'm going to create my own permission. I'm going to go to add. I got to give my permission a name. I'm going to be very generic and call it my edit perm. Let's call it my custom edit perm. All right. This is where I needed that content type. Just because I created one, I'm going to use none. So that's what I called it. Code name. This is how you refer to your permission inside of your code. So make sure you name it appropriately in terms of a Python variable naming scheme. You can't have spaces, you can't have dashes. You're essentially creating a variable name. So in this case, I'll call it my custom edit perm, so using underscores, just in case. All right, so that's how I'll refer to the perm in my code. This is the visual name that I'll see in like my admin panel.
You called that temp instead of perm.
What was that, James?
You called that temp instead of perm.
Oh, thank you. All right, so I've created this new permission. I'm gonna hit save. All right, so now I've created a custom permission down here, my custom edit permission. Now I'm gonna do one more thing, or maybe a couple more things. I'm gonna create a group now. So we talked about groups. It's, you wanna create groups and assign permissions and users via those groups. So if I go to groups and add a group, I'm gonna call my group, they're gonna be editors. That's me, my group name. I could associate permissions with it. So if I go down here, find that permission. So my custom permission is what I want all editors to have my custom edit perm if they're a member of the editors group. So I'm going to add that permission to this group, hit save. Okay, so my editors group got created. Now I'm going to my users records. I'm going to create a user here. So everything I'm doing right now, you can do outside your admin panel. You could do this through fixtures. You could do this through a seeds file. Admin panel is just much easier because it has a nice forms, and I just much prefer it and it saves time. So let's create a user called editor1. Give it a password, same password, papa154, papa154. All right, so editor1. I'm going to save this user. All right, these are the only 3 fields available to me right now. Hit save. All right, so notice it created a user for me called editor1. So I have 3 users in my database. Admin is that super user. Viewer1 was the first user we created, and then we have editor1. So let's actually click on editor1. And now that the user's been created, if we scroll down, we can add groups for this user. So these are all available groups. In this case, there's only one group available because that's the only group I've created. If I add this to my user now, so again, I moved it over. So now this user should be a member of the editors group. All right, so I got to hit save. So just to kind of highlight this, I have access to groups, but I also have access to individual user permissions. So if I wanted to straight up just add my custom edit perm to this user, I could do that. That's exactly what we talked about earlier, right? With my file here, I deleted it. But as you talk about, you could add permissions directly to users, but is not recommended in permissioning schemes. So instead of adding the permission, I'm going to add my user to this group, and this group has permissions that this user will get access to. All right, so editors is my group. I'm going to hit save. Save that. All right, so now editor 1 is a member of editors. Viewer 1 is not a member of editors, right? So if I go to viewer 1, notice that there's no groups or permissions for viewer 1. All they have is just login credentials, but no special permissions. You guys with me? I'll take that as a yes. Yeah, 2 users. Editor 1 has a permission, viewer 1 does not. Now, given that, oops. Now, if I go to my views, so if you remember our view page, we want anyone that's logged in to have access to the view page. So we don't need to change anything there. But for our edit page, we do want to restrict based on that permission. So to do this, I can check the user so that we have access to the user, just like we had access to the user in our templates page. If you do request, this request object that gets passed in for every handler has a user object on it, or a user instance, I should say, on it. So I have access to whatever user's logged in, or if no user's logged in, it's going to be an anonymous user. I can check, there's a method called hasPerm, and then I need to check the perm that I created. So in this case, it's on my site_app, and the perm name, if we remember, let's go back to permissions. Did I kill my server? All right, my perm name, if you guys remember, was my custom edit perm. Again, this is the variable name. So again, that's why we provided a valid variable name. So now
Anchor question.
Yep.
Is hasPerm is just a built-in method?
Yep, hasPerm is
Okay.
a built-in method on the user model. Yep, so a lot of this magic is coming from the models on themselves. Again, I could check is a member of group, right? You know, I could probably check if they're a member of a specific group. But in this case, I actually care about the permission. I don't care what group they're part of. They could be part of 20 different groups. So long as one of those groups has a perm I care about, that's all I need to check here. So here I'm checking if the user has a perm, this will return a Boolean. So if they have the perm, we'll get a true back. So then we could, you know, let them actually view our edit page. But if they don't, so let's do something. Let's maybe return a render of requests. And let's create a new page. So I'm going to call it pages/ error no perm. All right, so I'm quickly going to create another template page. This is not going to be anything glamorous. Go to my templates, pages. Let me just copy, paste, rename. So this is, I called it error no perm. Kind of a mouthful, but okay. So that is simply just going to tell the user, hey, you don't have perms for what you're doing. It's going to be my error page. This is the error page. All right, so you do not have sufficient perms to view this content. I'll just say this page. All right, so now we are conditionally checking in our views. Hey, do you have this special perm that we implemented? If they do, great. You can view the edit page. If they don't, we're going to redirect them to this error page and say, let them know that, you know, they're not allowed to view this. So given this, we should have proper protections built in place. So again, we had to do a few things through the admin panel where we need to add a custom permission and then add a user group and associate that user with that user group. So again, if I go to my server, which should be up, let's go homepage. All right, so we're logging in as admin. That's not what I want, so let's log out. All right, so we're not logged in. Let's just review. This we'll wrap up shortly. Let's review. So we're not logged in. So login, not logged in. Anyone should get to the homepage. View page, you need to log in to view the view page. Edit page, you also need to log in. All right, so let's actually go log in here. So if we log in here, username viewer1, and password will be Papa1234. So we log in here. Homepage accessible. View page accessible now because we're logged in. But edit page, again, we're viewer1. Viewer1 does not have those edit permissions unless we get to the error page. But if we log out, and let's go in as editor1, Password is Papa1234. Log in. All right, so now we can view the home page because anyone can. View page, we can view this because we are logged in. Now edit page. Notice we are able to view the edit page because we have that permission, right? That editor has this my custom edit permission. So with this, again, this is a very simple example, but hopefully you guys can extend this out. You know, you could have, again, viewing special pages, viewing like having the ability to edit or delete or modify content. That would be special permissions that you give to your users. All right, so that handles our authorization. Again, very simple example. Obviously, you guys can tailor it to whatever your site needs to do, but hopefully that kind of made sense of how we are able to control access to pages based on what level of permission we want to grant. All right, I think that basically covers it. So yeah,
Hunter, I have a question.
Yep, go for it.
Right there on line 14, the my custom edit perm, where are you getting that name from?
Yeah, so that's the permission that I created. So we go to my admin panel, admin. Okay, so that was the permission I created here. So remember that's this one. This name, this code name is where I actually reference it. So whatever name I put here is how I reference it within my code. This name value is just visual. That's, you know, that's what the user sees over the admin panel that you can see. Again, the content type, don't worry about that. Just something that's required. I know I kind of glazed over it. It's just part of the permissioning scheme. In this case, I just created a dummy content type so I could link to it. All right, what other questions you guys have about authorization, authentication? Hopefully you guys at this point know the difference between authentication and authorization. Again, similar sounding words, but they mean different things. Again, going through this, all these steps, again, there's a lot of steps out there. I don't necessarily memorize all of them, but just kind of walk through adding the URLs, make sure you create your templates. And then a lot of the time is honestly spent making sure your web pages are linked up correctly. So if you go to the curriculum page again, we have the starter code for you. I didn't add in all the CSS styling and some of the additional things we added, but you should be able to follow this code and get all the base pages in there. I'll actually try to add in a couple extra things we threw in here. So like the permissioning stuff, there's nothing about authorization on the page, but I'll try to add in a blurb about this if you guys are curious. Again, you don't have to worry about this for your assessment. Even authorization, that is optional for your assessment, but it's just good to know about how, you know, websites implement login and authentication and authorization schemes. All right, last thing, let's make sure we know what we're doing tonight. So luckily, there's nothing too new you need to do for your challenges. So the last couple of days, you implement a to-do list and an events calendar. We're just going to ask you to try to implement sign up and log in and log out functionality for those pages. So just getting practice of kind of what we went through today. Also, we have a link to someone else's tutorial. So this one is a little more standard. They follow the naming protocols of accounts. So this is, again, the standard way to do it. So you guys can follow this if you want just another kind of tutorial to go through. Essentially similar to what we went through. Again, we had a few extras that we threw in there. I don't think they go over permissioning on this tutorial, but yeah, just want to link that and reference that in case you want to get more knowledge about this. But again, some customization we added. Make sure you add in your settings files, login, redirect URL if you don't use the default account URL naming scheme. Yeah, so this is custom to us, but that's easily handled by adding these items. What questions do you guys have?
Ankur, is there an example that maybe in one of those tutorials where they use a seed file to set the permissions? Because is it as something as simple as like content underscore type or content type equals or dot name equals, you know, whatever you wrote in the admin panel, and then content type, and then like content type dot save, like those kind of standard things for the permissions and stuff? Is it just like that?
Yeah, so as I said, everything I did in the admin panel, you could do through seed files or fixtures files. It's just a little bit more work. I could get you started on it. So if I created a seeds.py, just kind of show you high level what's going to do. Again, I'm not going to complete it fully because you guys want to get to lunch and I don't want to keep you longer, but essentially you need to import, from Django contrib auth.models. We want to import permission, user, and groups. So these are the three things we're working with. You also need to import that content type, that annoying content type, which all right, so I'm not going to deal with content type, but for the most part, you can just create users just like we're doing. So I do, user1 equals user, give it a username, equals Michael. And then this is one thing that I'm just going to highlight. If you choose to do this, you cannot do this. I brought this up in like a past lecture. I can't just do this. This is not going to work. The reason this is not going to work is because if you remember your database, let's do select top 100. Remember, your passwords are hashed. This is what's stored in a database. This is not the password I chose. It's a hashed version of it. So if you try to do this, where did it go? Where did it go? Seats. This is not your password. This is the hashed version of whatever password you were trying to set. So if you assign password directly, this is not going to work. The way to do this is you call set password with your plain text password, and this will hash it for you. Just keep that in mind. You're probably not going to do this too often, but just want to mention it. So this is how you properly set a password on a user model. And then of course you need to save it. Then you create a permission. So permission would also be a permission object. And then you create a group equals group. Once you create that group and you save them, so you need to save all these items first. Again, this is not going to be valid code because you need to actually give them names. But once you create these instances, you'll do the same thing, essentially what I did in the admin panel. So you do group1.permissions.add or append, I think, permission 1, for example. Again, a group can have multiple permissions. You're not limited to one permission per group. It's a many-to-many relationship. And then group1.users. I forgot what this is. And I could do it from user u1.groups.append group1. You should be able to do this bi-directionally. So I should be able to add users to groups. In this case, I'm adding a group to a user. But essentially, this accomplishes the same thing. A group has a perm on it. User is a member of a group. Therefore, this user has access to this perm.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that makes
the hard
sense.
part will be figuring out what values you need to pass here. So permission has like a code name we talked about. So that's my perm, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you can do this through a seeds file is what I want to highlight. Okie dokes. With that, I'm going to stop the recording.